Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chapter 2 of Anatomy and Physiology. Today we are getting into the vocabulary for our chapter on histology. That's a weird word, right? That's just a fancy word for tissues. If you remember previously, we talked about how if you get a whole bunch of cells together, it's called a tissue. And then you get a whole bunch of tissues together, it's organs, and organs is really what we're going to be talking about this year. But this chapter is on the tissues. So let's jump into the vocabulary and get started on, I believe, 13 words. All right, let's get started on this. 13 words, the different kinds of tissues and words associated with the tissues. Our first word is epithelial tissue, a tissue that covers all free body surfaces. And I probably should have warned you that you were going to see some organs in this. Epithelial tissue covers all free body surfaces. What that means is like your skin. You ever heard the term epidermis? That has to do with your skin. Epidermis gets its name from epithelial. And you have this all over your body, not just in your skin, but everywhere on the inside too. Every single organ and every single free space in your body is covered with this protective tissue. Think of it like saran wrap, wrapping everything up for protection. So the heart has its own epithelial covering, the liver has its own epithelial covering, the intestines have it as well, which is the reason why the intestines are all balled up instead of just hanging loose like a jump rope, because these things are saran wrapped and vacuum sealed in this epithelial tissue. And it's also, you can actually see it, look like it's stretching right here on the inside of the cavity, the abdominal and thoracic cavities of this pig. It's all wallpapered. So every single surface area has that covering. Right. Muscle tissue, a tissue made up of long cells that we call fibers that contract, meaning to shorten, to pull on your body parts. So for instance, right here are your biceps. And they're actually attached, you can't really see it because the deltoid's in the way, but they're attached to your shoulder. They reach across your arm and attach to your forearm. So when your biceps contract, they shorten, they pull on your forearm, which lifts your forearm up. That's true for all of your muscle tissue. That is literally the only thing muscles do. They contract, they shorten to pull on something. Nervous tissue and neuron, 3 and 4 are going to go together. A neuron is a cell. Nervous tissue is a tissue made up of those neurons. Right? So really, it's the neurons that we care about. And we're going to have a whole chapter on this. Actually 2 chapters, because there's a lot going on with this stuff. A neuron is a cell that senses change in the environment and sends signals to the brain. Your brain and nervous system are made out of these things. So all around here are called dendrites. These are accepting information, sucking in chemicals that tell your body what's going on. We call them hormones. And they will now send a message out to the next neuron. And it's like whisper down the lane. It said, this one says, contract a bicep, and goes out to the next neuron and says, contract your bicep. And then it goes on and on and on until eventually it gets to your bicep and it contracts. Or if you feel pain, it will go all the way to your brain and tell you that you felt the pain. So this is sending information. Nervous tissue is just a whole bunch of these working together to get the message from point A to point B. And they do interlock. This is a computer-generated image, not a real one. But you can see how they all connect to each other. The ends of one attached to the dendrites of the others. And they branch out into these really big, giant, intricate webs that are really hard to follow because they're sending information to all different parts of your body. They need to go in all these different directions. And if you zoom out far enough, you get your entire nervous system made up of your brain, your spinal cord, and all of the nerves branching out across your body telling you what to do. All right, moving on, connective tissue, a tissue made of different types of cells. There isn't any one specific cell that makes up your connective tissue. There's a lot going on. And they have many jobs. But the main thing is it holds you together, right? It connects body parts. So for instance, this is some epithelial tissue for your first vocab word, but down at the bottom is something we call a basement membrane. That's a type of connective tissue that is gluing your skin down to the rest of your body. You have connective tissues in between your muscle fibers, keeping them together. There's actually a muscle degenerative disorder where that connective tissue breaks down and your muscles fall apart. So that's very important stuff here. You have connective tissue between your nerves. You have it in with your fat. You have it, your bones are actually a type of connective tissue. Your blood is a type of connective tissue. All this different stuff. Our next couple words are different kinds of connective tissue. Adipose. Adipose tissue is a very fancy word for your fat. All right? It's actually called adipose. That's the material. It is a type of connective tissue that stores energy. It's used as a cushion for your joints and your organs, and also acts as insulation. So fat is actually a good thing. A lot of people spend a lot of their lives trying to get rid of fat. And if you get rid of all of it, you can actually die. You need it. There are, again, medical issues involved in not having enough fat in your joints, so you don't have cushion and your bones start breaking down. You don't have enough energy because, no fat, no storage, then you're very lethargic and you can't do things. Or you start getting way too cold, way too easy without the insulation. So fat is a good thing. Too much fat is bad. Too much of a good thing is always a bad thing. So be healthy, be careful. Another type of connective tissue is cartilage. This provides support, framework, attachments. This is going to be working closely with your bones. Some parts of your body don't need bones for structure, like your nose or your ears. So you're going to use cartilage for that instead. You're also going to have cartilage in your joints. Even though we just said you're going to have fat in your joints, you're also going to have cartilage. So fat is a very soft cushion. Cartilage is a thicker, more substantial cushion. They both are important for various reasons. And again, there are degenerative disorders where the cartilage breaks down and does not get replaced as easy, and your bones get worn out. So you need that. Chondrocyte is a cartilage cell. These are the cells that make up your cartilage. And if you look at this, this is a real slide of these cells, and it kind of looks like glass. This is the hard cartilage that the bridge of your nose is made out of, called hyaline cartilage. So it looks really glassy and zoomed in, almost like stained glass window. Fibroblasts is another type of cell in the connective tissue. This is what's going to make all the different fibers that hold you together, right? So this is a cell that makes the fibers that make up your tendons and your ligaments. Your tendons and ligaments are another type of connective tissue made up of these fibers that come from these cells. This is very easy to remember. Blast is actually a word for cells. It's a certain stage of cellular development, but I don't really think about that. I think that it sounds like it's blasting out fibers. I think I'm picturing Spider-Man shooting his web shooters, right? It's blasting out fibers so that you can have all your tendons and ligaments holding you together. Macrophage and mast cells. Guys, these are two types of connective tissue cells that we are going to come back to. Remember what I said, blood is a type of connective tissue, and we're going to have an entire chapter on blood. So we are going to come back to these blood cells. These are types of white blood cells. Yes, and you have different kinds of white blood cells for very different jobs. A macrophage is the type of white blood cell that you would probably think about is going to eat invading particles. Right? Have you ever heard of the old horror movie The Blob? Or not as old of a movie, Monsters vs. Aliens? They had Bob the Blob, the blue guy who just engulfed things, and those things would just dissolve inside of him. Right? That's what a macrophage does. And it just engulfs a bacteria, and that bacteria dissolves away so it doesn't make you sick. And a mast cell is actually not going to attack invading particles. This is a type of white blood cell that is going to affect you directly. Right? This is going to release chemicals. Again, we call these chemicals hormones. Hormones are any chemical that tells your body what to do. It releases these two chemicals that are going to eventually help your body. And I thought I had these chemicals listed here. I don't. It'll be in the notes, but they're called heparin and histamine. Histamines are chemicals that make you get all clogged up. That's why when in allergy season you need antihistamines, like Benadryl, that open your nose back up so you can breathe. Well, mast cells are actually trying to clog up your nose on purpose so that you don't breathe in bad stuff that's in the air. So it's actually it's making you uncomfortable, but it's trying to help you. And heparin is what keeps your blood liquid. You know, when your blood spills, you get cut or something on the surface, it starts hardening up. We call that coagulating, becoming a scab. Well, we don't want that happening inside of our body, and that's how you die. So heparin is a chemical mast cells make to keep your blood liquid. Osteocyte is a round bone cell. These are actual images in a microscope, and if you look at it, this round structure is not the osteocyte. Let's zoom in. If I can't, let me zoom in. Here we go. These black dots, that's an osteocyte. This is an osteocyte. This is an osteocyte. Right? Your bone cells are actually black. And if you remember back in Bio 1, we talked about exocytosis. We all talked about protein synthesis. These two things working together. These osteocytes create proteins that your bones are made out of. And then exocytosis is the chemical leaving the cell, coming out here, and becoming bone material. So all that stuff from Bio 1 is coming back here. So all of your bone material was made inside of this osteocyte and then oozes out and becomes the bone. So osteo is a prefix. It has to do with bones. Anytime you see osteo, you know we are talking about your bones. You probably heard of osteoporosis. It's a degenerative bone disorder. And then cyte is just I think, Greek word that means cell. Anytime you see cyte, we're talking about cells. So this literal translation from Greek to English is bone cell. An osteon is a cylinder made of osteocytes. Again, this round structure of bone material made up of all of these different osteocytes making bone material. Well, if I were to take this and pull it out, like right here, I get a whole big cylinder of them. That is one osteon. And this is a bone. I believe this is supposed to be a femur, your bone in your thigh. And it is made up of a whole bunch of smaller osteons fused together to make one big bone. And each osteon is hollow. And then in that hollow space, you have blood vessels and nerves. So yes, you actually have blood in your bones. You have nerves in your bones. So if you break a bone, your bones will bleed and it will hurt. And that was our last vocab word. Check out Google Classroom and see if I had left you any work to do. Good luck on that, and I'll see you in the next video.